The Heart Between Us. Delicate Hands, Fierce Hearts. Chapter 1. Truncus Arteriosus. Dr. Elena Volkov, world-renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, is currently the only surgeon to have perfected both aortic aneurysm repair and congenital heart defect repair procedures with 0 patient fatalities. The youngest of 5 children of Dr. Dmitry Volkov, Elena is also one of the very few women in the extended Volkov lineage to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. At 35, she has not only forged an illustrious reputation, but also maintains a patient list stretching 2 years into the future, performing back-to-back surgeries on a weekly basis. So, when an unusual case landed on her desk, she immediately cleared her schedule to fly to Manila for a consultation. The case? Truncus Arteriosus in an unborn baby. Elena received the referral from a colleague in Manila, and it immediately piqued her interest. The surgery would have to be performed on the baby in utero, as the fetus, just 5.5 months along, was too young to survive birth. Elena had handled countless intricate procedures before, but this was both rare and unprecedented. She had only heard of 2 similar surgeries and knew of just 1 surviving patient. The stakes were monumental, career-defining or career-ending. But Elena Volkov had never shied away from the unusual. In fact, she thrived on it. "Marcus, I definitely want a consultation. Can you set it up?" Her voice was steady, though she could barely contain her excitement as she spoke to her colleague. "Elena, you know how risky and unusual this is, and Marcus, you wouldn't have sent me this if you didn't want me to take a look." She cut him off. Silence lingered on the other end, and for a moment, she thought he had dropped the call. Then he said, "I'll email you everything. But Elena, think carefully about this." She ended the call and immediately checked her inbox, scanning Marcus's files while rearranging her upcoming surgeries. Fortunately, a few skilled surgeons at her hospital could handle the routine heart procedures. She then called St. Jude Hospital and asked for Dr. Cynthia Chen. As she waited on hold, she read through Marcus's notes. The mother, a 19-year-old daughter of a Manila dignitary, was healthy before her pregnancy. She had kept the pregnancy a secret from her mother, but complications arose, and the baby was now in distress. She had been hospitalized for 3 weeks. "Hello," a voice answered. "Cynthia, it's Elena," she greeted, friendly yet reserved. "Elena, what a nice surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Cynthia Chen had attended the same university and followed a nearly identical career path. If anyone could handle Elena's challenging surgeries, it would be Cynthia. "I have 2 surgeries that are right up your alley. I'm scheduled for a consultation in Manila. Can I send you the details?" Always straight to the point, Volkov. "Yes, of course." They exchanged a few more pleasantries before ending the call. Chapter 2. Manila Consultation. The air smelled stale and vaguely dusty as Elena stepped off the plane. She pulled her sunglasses over her eyes against the harsh sunlight and scanned the small airport. Then she spotted Marcus. She descended the steps, her small tote bag slung over one shoulder and her laptop bag in the other hand. "Elena, welcome to Manila," he greeted, extending his hand. "Thank you. Can we go straight to the hospital, or must I first jump through diplomacy hoops?" she asked, half teasing. He laughed and opened the car door. Elena slid in, and they drove in a tangible silence. The medical city, located in Metro Manila, was predominantly private. Marcus parked underground, and they took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. Stepping into a private lobby, Elena noticed several bodyguards stationed around. "Dignitary? This looks more like a presidential guard," she whispered to Marcus. He simply pointed toward the first door, and she followed. Inside, nurses bustled about, changing drips, while a small framed girl lay in bed. The monitors beside her beeped steadily. When Elena picked up the chart, the girl opened her eyes and stared directly at her. The mixture of shock and relief in the girl's gaze took Elena's breath for a second. She was used to patients being grateful when she accepted a consultation or surgery, but this was different. "Dr. Volkov, you came," the girl said, her voice heavy with accent. Elena nodded and stepped closer to examine her. She listened to the baby's heartbeat, reviewed the charts Marcus had sent, then stepped back and turned to him. "Can we talk?" she asked. He gestured toward the door, and they stepped out together. "This is not going to be easy," Elena began earnestly, "but it has been done before. I'd like to speak to her parents, and perhaps schedule the surgery for 2 days from now." Marcus stood by the window, his shoulders slumped. Elena touched his arm gently. "Marcus?" He turned toward her, inhaling deeply. "Elena, there's something you should know about the patient before we continue." Elena raised an eyebrow. That tone, she remembered it well. 7 years ago, he'd called her frantically one night, trying to perform surgery on a patient before he was certified. "What the Marcus? What did you do?" Her voice strained. "If whatever you're about to tell me involves me in illegal or undermined shit, I walk." He turned quickly, and in his eyes, she saw fear and something unspeakable. "Elena, she's carrying my child. But no one knows." "Jesus." Her voice dropped low and sharp. "Her mother doesn't know. We met a year ago, and she was 18. He trailed off, tears forming. "Fuck, this is next-level shit," Elena whispered, pinching the bridge of her nose. She ran her hand through her midnight black hair and exhaled deeply, walking to the window and placing both hands on the sill. Marcus came to stand next to her, silence settling between them. Elena stared over the city for a long moment, then slowly turned, leaning against the window. "Jesus, Marcus, you know I will not be able to cover your ass this time. You are aware of what's at stake." He nodded, voice trembling. "There's more." Her head snapped toward him. Anger flared in her eyes. "More? What the fuck more could there be, Marcus?" He inhaled deeply. "Her mother isn't just a dignitary. She is the royal ambassador to the Philippines. She's from the royal family of Norway." "Helvede, Lord," Elena muttered under her breath, sighing deeply. She looked at Marcus, then back at the girl in the room. Her black curls framed her face as she bent her head, weighing the impossible choice before her. Finally, she made a decision that would likely haunt her for the rest of her life. "Okay, let's get the operation done. Then you will man up and speak to her parents." With that, she turned and walked back into the room. Chapter 3: Norwegian Royalty. Elena was sitting in the office Marcus had allocated to her during her stay at Medical City when a commotion outside the door caught her attention. A sharp knock followed, and the door swung open. Elena looked up, and for a heartbeat, she stopped breathing. The woman who entered was not just beautiful, she was exquisite. Long blonde hair framed a flawless face, her blue eyes the color of a clear ocean, full lips and a sharp jawline completing a visage that could stop hearts. Elena could feel her own heart hammering so loudly she was sure all of Manila could hear it. She didn't attempt to stand, her knees felt weak. The woman glided to the desk, standing tall and regal, and then spoke. Her voice was melodic and smooth, and Elena had the sudden, uncontrollable urge to imagine it whispering sweet things in her ear. She shook her head, chasing the thought away. "I believe you are Dr. Elena Volkov. I am Freya Ulven. You are treating my daughter." Elena studied Freya carefully. She didn't look old enough to be the mother of a 19-year-old, maybe late 30s, early 40s at most. Slowly, Elena stood and motioned toward a chair. "Please sit, Mrs. Ulven," she said politely. "Miss, not Mrs.," Freya corrected, a gentle smile tugging at her lips. Heat rose in Elena's neck. She quickly composed herself and apologized. "I am sorry, how presumptuous of me." Freya's smile widened, lighting up the room. "It's fine. I get it a lot, especially with a 19-year-old daughter." Elena sat down, taking a moment to steady her racing heart before speaking again. "Miss Ulven, I'll be frank. This is a very delicate operation. I believe I can save both your daughter and your grandchild, but there is a small risk of complications." "What complications, doctor?" Freya's eyebrows furrowed as she studied Elena. "This operation has only been performed twice in history. One of those attempts was unsuccessful." Elena searched Freya's face for doubt, but all she saw was unwavering certainty. Freya cleared her throat, then said something Elena hadn't expected. "Dr. Elena Volkov, renowned cardiothoracic surgeon with 0 casualties." I believe my daughter is in good hands. You think I didn't look you up? A slow smirk formed on Freya's lips, and Elena felt heat creeping further than her neck. I am flattered. I didn't think you'd allow me to perform this surgery when Norway has some of the best cardiothoracic surgeons, Elena replied. Freya studied her for a long moment, then smiled and rose. She walked to the door, paused, and without turning said, "But none with hands so capable." With that, she left. Elena stared at the closed door, her heart clawing its way out of her chest, heat blooming deep in her stomach. Jesus, Elena, get a grip, she muttered to herself. 20 minutes later, Marcus found her still staring at the door. Elena, I have the form signed for the operation. He handed her the paperwork and sank onto the leather couch in the office. Elena's gaze lingered on the forms, but her mind drifted back to Freya. Her heart began racing again. Without looking up, she asked Marcus about the family. I see your girlfriend is Monica Solverson. How is her mother, Olven? Marcus leaned back, hands crossed over his chest, eyes closed. Monica was Freya's sister's child. When she was born, her mother died on the table, and Freya stepped in to raise her. Elena nodded, processing the information. And the father? She pressed further. No father. Freya isn't interested in men. And apparently, her family and Norway are fine with it. Elena's heart skipped, and she raised a brow. Is that so? She murmured, more to herself than to Marcus. Chapter 4. Delicate Hands. 2 days later, Elena stood next to Marcus, scrubbing in to perform the surgery that could make, or break, her career. Her hands were steadier than her heart, which thumped relentlessly in her chest. She stepped into the operating room and let the nurse fit her gloves. For a moment, she closed her eyes and did something that drew disapproving looks from the observing doctors. What is she doing? One of them whispered. Before anyone could comment further, Freya smiled and answered softly, her superhuman pose. Elena stepped forward, her voice calm, collected, and authoritative. Scalpel. She made the first incision. The auditorium was filled with doctors, nurses, and Freya Olven. Every movement Elena made was precise, deliberate, almost like a passionate dance. The steady beat of the monitor, amplified through the speakers, reassured Freya that both her daughter and grandchild were in the best hands. Then came the most delicate and dangerous part. Elena opened the frail chest of the baby, working meticulously to close a heart defect, separate the single large artery into a new aorta and pulmonary artery, and create a connection with a valve between the right ventricle and pulmonary arteries. Glancing at the clock, Freya realized 3 hours had already passed. A nurse dabbed sweat from Elena's brow. Suddenly, the monitor spiked and Elena froze. For a heartbeat, she closed her eyes, then her fingers moved with surgical precision. To Freya, it felt like an eternity. To Elena, it was a split second. Around them, nurses and the anesthesiologist tensed, but Freya's gaze remained fixed on Elena. It felt like a slow-motion scene from a medical drama, eerily calm, almost magical. Then, just as suddenly as the spike appeared, a steady beat returned. Relief rippled through the room. Elena's colleagues exhaled, but she remained poised, every movement graceful, intoxicating in its mastery. When the procedure ended, Elena stepped back. The world seemed to pause for a heartbeat as her eyes met Freya's. She nodded, and Freya swore she saw a smile beneath her mask. They closed the baby's chest and then Monica's abdomen. Elena stepped out into the scrub room alone, leaning against the wall as tears rolled down her cheeks. She allowed herself a brief moment before removing her scrubs and theater cap. She washed her face and hands, letting the water mingle with her tears. This was only the beginning. The next 48 hours would determine whether the repair held and if the baby would continue to grow and thrive. After drying her face, she walked into the waiting room, where Freya waited. 5 hours in there, and you still look like you just went for a walk. How do you do it? Freya asked, sitting beside her. Elena only smiled. The silence between them was heavy, loaded with unspoken tension. Finally, she spoke softly. The next 48 hours will be the real test. And I warn you, it will be hell. Freya nodded and watched as Elena stood and walked away. She felt Freya's eyes on her the entire time. She needed space before her emotions got the better of her. Once outside, she inhaled the cool Manila air, finally letting go of the breath she'd been holding. Leaning against the hospital wall, she let the air wash over her. An hour later, Marcus found her. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Elena leaned her head back, closed her eyes, and simply breathed. "Like I just woke from a very long, exhausting dream." Marcus nodded and booked an Uber to take her back to the hotel. Back at the hotel, Elena opened the shower and let steam fill the room. She stripped off her scrubs and stepped into the hot water, leaning against the wall as she replayed the operation in her mind, every cut, every stitch, every heartbeat of that tiny life in her hands. Tears streamed down her face. Elena had never been one to cry easily, but she didn't stop herself when they came. She knew, though, that today, she may have crossed a new threshold in her career. The survival of this baby would make her the third surgeon to perform the procedure in its entirety and the second baby to survive it. Failure had no place in her thoughts. She finally got out of the shower, dried off, and slipped into an oversized hoodie. Sleep eluded her, but she forced herself to rest. 3 days later, Elena stood beside Monica Solverson's bed. A nurse adjusted in 4-line nearby, and across the room, Freya watched silently. Elena placed her stethoscope on the tiny chest, listening to the heartbeat, strong, steady. Her smile radiated relief. "He's a fighter. That heartbeat is strong and steady." She handed the stethoscope to Freya. "Do you want to hear?" Freya stepped forward. When their fingers brushed, both flinched as a spark shot through them. Their eyes met, and Elena saw mirrored in Freya's blue eyes the same storm of emotions she herself felt. Chapter 5: Impossible Decisions. Elena stood in the office, staring out over the city skyline. The lights shimmered like molten gold, luminous and magical. She had been in Manila for a week, and Monica and her baby were steadily recovering. Tomorrow, Monica would be released from the hospital and placed in her mother's care. Elena felt a pang of regret. This meant she would be flying back to Seattle as well. A soft knock at the door made her start. She turned. "Come in," she called. The door creaked open, and Freya stepped inside. She was dressed in a blue dress that hugged every curve, dangerously so, and Elena's heart immediately spiked. Her blonde hair was pulled high atop her head, a few loose strands caressing her face. Her heels clicked melodically on the tile floor as she glided closer. "Dr. Volkov, good evening," Freya greeted, her voice smooth, almost intoxicating. Elena's throat went dry at the sight of her ethereal presence. She could only stare. Freya drew nearer, and Elena caught the subtle, floral scent of her perfume, intoxicating and utterly disarming. She cleared her throat, voice shaky as words finally came. "Miss Ulvin, you look," her words faltered, unable to capture the perfection before her. Freya smiled shyly and took another step. Elena felt her heartbeat quicken, her hands trembled. She clenched her fists as heat radiated off Freya, and suddenly, she couldn't move or speak. The only sound was her own pulse, loud enough she was certain Freya could hear it. Another step brought Freya so close Elena could see the tiny freckles on her cheeks. Then Freya spoke again. "I owe you a debt I can never repay." Elena swallowed hard, still trembling. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Freya took another step, and Elena felt the hairs on her arms tingle. The moment was electric, dangerously close to ignition. Her knees weakened, but she found her voice barely. "Miss Ulvin." Before she could finish, Freya's lips claimed hers. The kiss ignited instantly. Elena felt herself falling into it, Freya's one hand behind her head, the other closing over her waist and pulling her closer. Elena kissed her back with all the week's pent-up tension and frustration. Freya's tongue brushed through her teeth, and Elena opened her mouth, giving her full access. The kiss deepened, growing fiercer, hotter, more consuming. Freya broke away first, resting her forehead against Elena's. Neither spoke. They simply breathed, tasting the moment, suspended in its gravity. "Well, this was unexpected," Elena whispered softly. Was it though? Freya countered, a playful glint in her eyes. They smiled. Freya took Elena's hand and led her to the leather couch, sitting close. I know you're leaving tomorrow and Seattle is thousands of miles away, but maybe. I don't know, she murmured, voice trailing off with possibility. Elena returned her gaze with a bittersweet smile, eyes closing for a beat before opening again. Your timing sucks, she said, half teasing, half regretful. They laughed, leaning into each other. The silence that followed was heavy with decisions and confusion. How would they navigate whatever this was between them? Freya spoke first, voice low and hopeful. There's a summit next month in Kirkland. My country is sending delegates. If I can get onto that list, can I see you? Elena's smile softened, radiant and warm. I'd like that very much. Freya pulled her in, and this time, the kiss was filled with promise, a possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to see each other again. Elena kissed her like oxygen, like she could never get enough, and Freya returned it with equal fervor, giving her no room to look elsewhere. Elena's hands found Freya's hair, undoing pins and letting golden curls weave through her fingers. Freya's hands roamed Elena's back, each touch trailing heat, sending shivers through her. They pulled each other so close it became impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Chapter 5: Departures and Longing. The morning light filtered through the hotel curtains, soft and golden, painting the room in warmth Elena didn't feel. Her suitcase lay open on the bed, half-packed, but her mind was elsewhere. Every item she touched felt heavy, weighted with the reality of leaving. Manila had been intense, exhausting, and exhilarating, and now it was coming to an abrupt end. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple, professional outfit, something that would hide the chaos still simmering in her chest. Yet, even in the crisp white blouse and tailored trousers, she felt exposed, as if leaving this city meant leaving a piece of herself behind. Marcus had arranged her transport to the airport, and he arrived silently, leaning against the doorway. Elena didn't turn immediately, she simply let the quiet stretch between them. You're leaving, he said softly, almost a statement rather than a question. I am, she replied, voice even but tight. She finally turned, meeting his eyes. Monica and her baby are in good hands. That's my job here. He stepped closer. You could have stayed a week longer. You know that. Elena shook her head, forcing a small, tired smile. I have a life, Marcus. Patients waiting. Surgery scheduled. I can't just stay because... Her voice trailed off as she let her thoughts drift for a moment. Because leaving Freya behind felt unbearable. Marcus's gaze softened, understanding her unspoken words. I know. The knock on the door made them both turn. Freya stepped inside, her presence filling the room instantly. She wore a tailored coat over a simple dress, her hair tied neatly back, though a few rogue strands framed her face. She carried herself with the same effortless grace Elena remembered, yet there was vulnerability in her blue eyes that Elena hadn't seen before. Marcus slipped out, neither saw or cared, only this moment was important. Elena, Freya whispered, stepping closer. Elena's chest tightened. She closed the suitcase with a soft click and turned fully to face her, words failing. Freya's hand reached for hers, warm and insistent, and the contact sent an electric pulse through her. I wanted to see you before you leave, Freya said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the storm beneath. I know we have constraints. Distance. Protocol. Everything. But I couldn't let you go without this. She leaned in, brushing her lips gently against Elena's, a fleeting kiss filled with desperation and promise. Elena's fingers tightened around hers, and for a heartbeat, the world disappeared. Pulling back, Freya rested her forehead against Elena's. Promise me something, she murmured. Anything, Elena breathed. Promise me you'll come back. That this isn't just a fleeting spark. Elena swallowed hard, letting the weight of the moment sink in. I promise, she said finally, the words heavy with conviction, though her heart whispered uncertainty. They lingered, hands entwined, foreheads pressed together. The airport call, the ride, The world beyond the hotel suddenly seemed unbearably far away. But in that room, for that fleeting moment, nothing existed but them. Finally, with a deep exhale, Elena pulled away slightly. "I have to go," she said softly, though every fiber of her being resisted. Freya nodded, though her eyes glistened. "Then go. But remember, I'll be waiting." Elena picked up her bag, slinging it over her shoulder. As she reached the door, she looked back one last time. Freya's gaze held hers, unyielding and tender, a promise and a challenge all at once. Stepping into the waiting car, Elena let herself breathe, though the ache in her chest remained. Manila faded behind her, but the thought of Freya, waiting, would follow her across every mile, every flight, and every long day until she could return. And return she would. Chapter 6. Across the Miles. Seattle greeted Elena with its familiar gray skies and cool breeze, a stark contrast to the humid warmth of Manila. She stepped out of the airport, her suitcase rolling silently behind her, and inhaled deeply. Home. Yet it felt hollow somehow, the city she loved now tinged with the ache of what, or rather, who, she had left behind. Her apartment was quiet, pristine, and orderly, the way she liked it. But the silence gnawed at her, reminding her of the soft weight of Freya's hand in hers, the warmth of her lips, and the intensity of her gaze. The memory lingered, stubborn and tantalizing. Elena set her bags down and sank onto her sofa, letting herself exhale fully. Her phone buzzed, and she instinctively reached for it, hoping for a message, though she knew it was unlikely. A brief smile tugged at her lips when she saw Marcus's name flashing. "Hey, how's Manila leaving you feeling?" the text read. Elena typed quickly, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Intact. Exhausted. Missing someone I shouldn't be." She deleted it, sighed, and wrote simply, "Safe. Knowing baby and mother are fine." Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. "I saw the look on your face before you left. You know it's only a matter of time before you cave, right?" Elena's heart skipped. Marcus had a way of seeing through her, even at 1,000 miles distance. She didn't reply immediately, instead staring out the window at the drizzle, watching raindrops streak the glass like tiny silver rivers. The days bled into one another. Elena returned to surgeries, consultations, and meetings with the usual relentless pace, but her thoughts were never far from Freya. Every quiet moment, the elevator ride, a coffee break, the long hours at her desk, her mind drifted to those blue eyes, the warmth of that kiss, the promise they had made. Freya, somewhere across the Pacific, was living her life too. Elena imagined her standing in polished rooms of Norwegian diplomacy, commanding respect, moving with grace, all while carrying the same ache in her chest that mirrored Elena's own. The distance stretched between them, invisible but heavy, like a taut wire connecting two hearts. One night, after a particularly grueling surgery, Elena sat alone in her apartment, peeling off her gloves and mask, hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline crush. She scrolled through her phone, almost hesitating, before opening the secure message app Freya had agreed to use. "Elena," it read. "I can't stop thinking about you. Every day feels longer than it should. I hate this distance, but it also makes me want to see you more, to hold you close when we finally meet again." Elena exhaled slowly, eyes closing. "Freya," she typed back, "I feel the same. Every quiet moment, every breath without you, I'm counting down. But we'll find a way." The response came quickly. "We always do. You're mine, Elena, even if the miles think otherwise." Her lips curved into a small, private smile. The ache of separation was real, but so was the promise, the tension, the connection that refused to fade. Seattle might be her home, but Freya's presence lingered, as potent and intoxicating as ever. Elena leaned back in her chair, letting herself sink into the thought. Distance was a challenge, yes, but it was also a fire, stoking something between them that neither time nor miles could extinguish. And she would cross any distance to feel that fire again. Chapter 7. Summit and Secrets. The air in Kirkland was brisk, carrying the faint scent of pine and lake water. Freya stepped out of the taxi in front of the convention center, her suitcase rolling behind her. The summit was bustling with delegates, diplomats, and officials from around the world. Yet her mind was elsewhere, focused on one person who had made the last few weeks impossible to forget. She had arrived early, needing time to review the agenda, ensure her schedule was clear, and admit it, anticipate every possibility of seeing Elena again. The first session ran long, discussions on policy, trade, and international cooperation. Freya took notes, nodding politely when appropriate, but her attention drifted constantly to the idea of Elena being here. And then, a voice, calm, smooth, magnetic. Freya. She turned sharply, heart jumping, and there she was. Elena Volkov, radiant in a tailored suit that accentuated her lithe frame, her storm-gray eyes glinting with mischief and intent. She smiled, and the world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them. Elena, Freya breathed, stepping closer, her presence commanding and intoxicating. I'm glad you're here. I should say the same, Elena breathed, unable to hide the tension coiling in her stomach. I wasn't sure if you'd actually make it. Freya chuckled softly, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. You know I don't miss the chance to see you. Her gaze softened, though the fire in her eyes remained. But we have to be careful. Security, protocol. My presence here isn't something I can just announce. Elena nodded, understanding the constraints even as her chest tightened. I get it. We can be discreet. They moved through the crowd, weaving around delegates and security, until they found a quiet corner near a balcony overlooking Lake Washington. The city spread out before them, peaceful and distant, the hum of the summit fading to background noise. Here, Freya said, letting her hand brush Elena's briefly, a fleeting, electric touch. We can talk. Elena's pulse quickened. I've missed you, she admitted, almost in a whisper. And I you, Freya replied, her voice low, intimate. She stepped closer, closing the distance, and Elena felt the heat of her body, the pull she couldn't resist. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, and, for a moment, the world narrowed to that one quiet balcony. We have time, Elena murmured, though the words were half a question, half a promise. Just a little, Freya said, her lips hovering near Elena's ear. But it's enough to plan. We can see each other properly tomorrow evening. No crowds, no obligations. Just us. Elena's hands found Freya's waist, pulling her closer despite the constraints of the busy summit. I'll hold you to that, she said softly, letting herself savor the tension and the thrill of proximity after weeks of distance. Freya smiled, a small, secretive curve of her lips. I intend to, she whispered. Tonight is just a promise. Tomorrow, we make it real. They lingered there a moment longer, hearts racing, fingers brushing, breathing shallow. And then the summit called them back into reality, Freya to her obligations, Elena to hers. But as Freya walked back into the hall, she knew something had shifted. The distance no longer seemed insurmountable. The fire between them had only grown brighter, hotter, with the promise of tomorrow's reunion. And Elena, despite the chaos of life, surgeries, and schedules, allowed herself to smile. Because for the first time in weeks, the future held more than uncertainty, it held possibility. Chapter 8. Private Promises. The Seattle skyline glittered through the penthouse windows, the city lights reflecting on the glass like a million tiny stars. Elena stood near the balcony, leaning against the railing, watching the gentle movement of the water below. Her heart raced, a mixture of anticipation, relief, and a hunger she had tried to ignore for weeks. Tonight, all distance, all rules, all boundaries faded. A soft knock at the door made her turn. Freya stepped in, sleek and confident, yet with a vulnerability in her eyes that Elena hadn't seen in public. The tailored suit was gone, replaced by a simple, elegant dress that hugged every curve, and her blonde hair fell loose over her shoulders, soft and inviting. Elena, Freya breathed, closing the distance between them. Her hands reached for Elena's, fingers entwining with a familiarity that felt both new and inevitable. Freya, Elena murmured, her voice low, almost reverent. She pulled Freya close, letting herself feel the warmth radiating from her body, the subtle scent of her perfume mixing with the cool night air. They stood there for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, the hum of the city below a distant echo. Then Freya spoke, her voice a whisper meant only for Elena. "I've wanted this, for weeks." Elena's fingers traced the line of Freya's jaw, feeling the soft skin under her touch. "Me too," she admitted, voice trembling just slightly. "Every day, every moment, I've imagined this." Freya smiled, leaning in to kiss her. The first brush of lips was gentle, exploratory, a tentative promise. Then it deepened, grew urgent, as Elena responded with all the pent-up desire of weeks apart. Their hands roamed, finding familiar curves, delicate skin, and tender places that only they could touch. Freya pulled back slightly, resting her forehead against Elena's again, breath uneven. "We have time tonight," she murmured. "No interruptions. No rules. Just us." Elena's hands cupped Freya's face, thumbs brushing along her cheeks. "Just us," she echoed, her lips finding Freya's once more. The kiss was a slow, burning exploration, a melding of longing and relief, of fire finally allowed to ignite. They moved to the couch, bodies pressed together, fingers tangling in hair, tracing lines along necks and shoulders. Every touch was electric, every brush of skin a promise. Elena marveled at how natural it felt, how inevitable it seemed, that after everything, the distance, the complications, they had found this moment. Freya's lips traveled down Elena's neck, eliciting a shiver that ran through her spine. Elena's hands roamed Freya's back, feeling the warmth, the tension, the exquisite softness. They whispered each other's names, half-breaths, half-laughter, all-consuming and intoxicating. Time slipped away. The world outside ceased to exist. There were no schedules, no responsibilities, no miles or protocols, just them. Just the heat of skin on skin, the rhythm of breath, the steady, inevitable pull of hearts finally allowed to collide. Eventually, they lay side by side, bodies entwined, fingers still brushing, hearts still racing. Freya traced idle circles on Elena's arm, eyes soft and luminous in the low light. "You're incredible," Freya whispered, voice full of awe and something tender that made Elena's chest ache. "You make me feel alive," Elena replied, turning to press a gentle kiss to Freya's temple. "I don't want tonight to end." Freya smiled, nuzzling closer. "Neither do I. But it's only the beginning." Elena closed her eyes, letting herself savor the warmth, the connection, the promise of more. Across the miles, across the challenges, across the unknown future, they had this perfect, fragile, electric moment. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 9, Morning After. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the penthouse. Elena stirred under the sheets, the faint scent of Freya still lingering in the room. For a moment, she allowed herself to linger in the quiet, replaying the night in her mind, the warmth, the closeness, the heat of skin pressed against skin, the electric tension that had finally found release. Freya stirred beside her, stretching languidly, hair tousled in the most enticing way, eyes opening slowly to meet Elena's. A small, soft smile curved her lips. "Morning," she whispered, her voice husky and intimate. "Morning," Elena replied, voice thick with sleep and lingering desire. She turned slightly, reaching for Freya's hand, lacing their fingers together. The touch felt grounding, anchoring, as if the night had somehow tethered them to each other in a way that distance could not undo. They lay together, the world outside forgotten for a few precious moments. Elena traced patterns along Freya's arm, thumb brushing lightly over skin, memorizing the warmth, the softness, the reality of her presence. "I hate that you have to leave again," Elena murmured, voice soft, almost wistful. Freya exhaled, brushing a loose curl from Elena's face. "I hate it too. But we knew it was coming. We always knew." She pressed a gentle kiss to Elena's forehead. "Manila, work, life, it doesn't change what happened here." Freya tilted her head, studying Elena with those piercing blue eyes. Does it scare you? The distance. Elena thought for a moment, feeling the truth settle in her chest. Yes, but it also makes this more important. Every moment, every text, every call, it matters more because of it. Freya nodded, a soft sigh escaping her lips. I want more moments with you. I want mornings, nights, everything in between. Even if it's hard. Elena smiled, a slow, warm smile that carried both love and determination. Then we'll make it work. We'll find a way. I don't do halfway, Freya. They lingered a little longer, savoring the quiet intimacy, the comfort of being close after weeks of longing. Eventually, reality intruded. Freya had meetings to attend. Elena had calls to take, lives to save. But even as they dressed and prepared to face the day, there was a lingering charge between them, a promise unspoken but understood. Distance was no longer just an obstacle. It was a challenge, a test of their resolve, and neither of them intended to fail. Freya pressed a soft, lingering kiss to Elena's lips before stepping back, her hand brushing Elena's as if to imprint the memory. Tonight, she whispered. Elena nodded, fingers twitching from the faint brush. Tonight, she echoed, heart pounding. And with that, they stepped into the day, carrying the warmth, fire, and promise of last night into the reality that waited outside the penthouse doors. Chapter 10, Last Night. The Seattle skyline glimmered like molten gold as the sun began to dip behind the horizon. Elena watched from the penthouse balcony, the city stretching endlessly below, but her eyes kept finding Freya, who stood beside her, hand lightly brushing against hers. This is going to be hard, Freya murmured, voice soft, almost trembling. Elena's fingers tightened around hers. I know, but we'll get through it. We always do. Freya turned, cupping Elena's face in her hands. I don't want to leave you. You're not leaving me, Elena countered, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. We'll make it work. Distance isn't stronger than this. She gestured between them, heart pounding. This, what we have, it's too real, too intense to let go. Freya swallowed, a shiver running through her. Then let's make tonight count. Elena's lips found hers in a slow, searing kiss, the kind that melts every worry and doubt. The world outside disappeared, the city lights, the summit, the distance, leaving only them, the heat of their bodies, the electricity that had been simmering since Manila. They moved to the bedroom, hands exploring, breath hitching, hearts racing. Every touch, every brush of skin, every whispered name was a vow, a promise, a desperate plea not to let this night end. Elena traced Freya's curves as if memorizing them, every line, every softness, every subtle shiver elicited under her fingers. Freya responded in kind, hands roaming over Elena's back, shoulders, and hair, pulling her closer with every heartbeat. Their kisses deepened, urgent and unrelenting, a language only they spoke, passion, desire, love entwined in every motion. Time seemed to suspend itself. The outside world, the summit, responsibilities, distance, was irrelevant. There was only this night, only this fire, only this connection that refused to be broken. Finally, they collapsed together, bodies tangled, breathing heavy, hearts pounding in sync. Freya rested her head on Elena's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of her heart. I wish we had more time, Freya whispered, voice small and tender. Elena brushed her hair back, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. We have this moment, and then we have all the moments to come. We'll make them count. I promise. Freya tilted her head, blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears, a mixture of longing and love. I'll hold you to that promise. They lay together in silence, holding onto the warmth, the intimacy, the knowledge that tomorrow would bring separation, but tonight was theirs alone. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every brush of fingers was a testament to what they shared, unshakable, undeniable, and fiercely alive. And as the night deepened, they both knew this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a promise that no distance, no summit, no duty could ever break. Chapter 11, Duty Above Desire. Freya sat at her desk in Manila, the soft glow of the late afternoon sun filtering through the grand windows of the royal residence. Papers lay scattered before her, summit reports, diplomatic briefs, and schedules that stretched across weeks. Every task was a reminder of the life she had inherited, a life of expectation, protocol, and responsibility. Yet, as she reviewed the documents, her mind kept straying. Elena. The memory of last night, of their hands intertwined, of every touch, every whispered promise, haunted her. A shiver ran down her spine, and she clenched her fist, trying to focus. Focus, Freya, she muttered to herself, voice low and tight. Duty comes first. Always duty. She leaned back, staring at the city below. Manila was beautiful, stately, orderly. Everything she was meant to uphold. Everything she was trained to prioritize. And yet, the thought of Elena, thousands of miles away, alone, left a hollow ache in her chest. Her assistant knocked softly before entering. Your Highness, the delegation has arrived for the summit preparations. Freya nodded, pushing her longing aside. Thank you, let them in. The delegation filed into the room, their voices formal, their presence commanding. Freya assumed the role expected of her, poised, articulate, commanding respect. Every smile, every nod, every carefully measured word was perfect. Every second she wasn't thinking of Elena was intentional. But no matter how tightly she held herself together, her mind betrayed her. She pictured Elena in Seattle, the curve of her smile, the strength in her hands, the warmth she had felt pressed against her last night. Freya's heart thudded painfully against the confines of decorum, reminder of what she wanted but could not always have. After hours of meetings, the room finally cleared. Freya remained seated, staring at the papers she had barely read. Duty had been fulfilled, but at what cost? A soft chime sounded from her phone, a message from Elena. How's my favorite royal? Missing me yet? Freya exhaled, a small smile tugging at her lips. She typed quickly, carefully. Always. But duty calls, and you know I answer. I'll be counting the days until I can see you again. The reply was instant. I'll be waiting. Don't make me wait too long. Freya stared at the screen, fingers hovering. Duty demanded she focus, but her heart demanded more. The tension twisted inside her, loyalty to her country, the weight of her role, and the undeniable pull of the woman she had fallen for in just a few stolen days. She placed the phone down and leaned back, closing her eyes. The responsibility of royalty was heavy, the expectations unyielding. But Elena was fierce, passionate, unyielding in her own way. And Freya knew, in the depths of her being, that she could not choose one over the other entirely. Duty above desire, yes. But Freya's heart had already decided. Chapter 12. Hectic Hearts. Seattle was gray and drizzly, the soft patter of rain against the hospital windows a familiar companion. Elena moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, her mind already several steps ahead, charts, patient notes, consultations, surgeries. Each task demanded her full attention, yet a part of her remained elsewhere, thousands of miles away with Freya. The Truncus Arteriosus surgery had been a resounding success. Monica's baby was stable, thriving, and on the path to recovery. Yet, as the praise poured in from colleagues and the hospital administration, Elena felt an unexpected emptiness, a longing for the warmth, the intimacy, and the quiet moments she had shared with Freya. Her phone buzzed repeatedly during rounds. Each time, she hesitated before answering, knowing the texts and calls were from Freya, but also aware she couldn't always respond fully. Between back-to-back surgeries and consultations, there was little space for more than a few stolen words. Thinking of you. Are you eating? Can't wait to see you again. Elena's thumb hovered over the keyboard, her mind filled with guilt. She typed quickly. I'm fine. Busy. I miss you too. Counting the days. The reply was almost instant, filled with heart emojis and longing. She stared at the screen for a long moment, wishing she could teleport across the globe. Her assistant nudged her gently. Dr. Volkov, next surgery prep is ready. Elena exhaled and pushed the longing aside. Duty was her world, her calling. She couldn't let anything, no matter how personal, no matter how urgent, interfere with the lives she was saving. Yet, the ache in her chest persisted. Hours turned into days. Each patient, each procedure, each critical decision left her physically exhausted but emotionally wound tighter. Freya's messages and video calls were lifelines, yet reminders of what she could not hold in that moment. During a brief break, Elena sat alone in the hospital's small garden, rain lightly misting her hair. She closed her eyes, imagining Freya's hands on hers, her lips brushing Elena's in quiet promise. A shiver ran through her. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. "I can balance it. I have to." The sound of a nurse calling her back snapped her from the daydream. With a deep breath, she stood, squared her shoulders, and returned to the corridors. The hospital was her world, her life's work, but Freya, her heart, was waiting in the distance. And for Elena, that waiting only made the eventual reunion sweeter, sharper, and more consuming. Chapter 13. Royal Obligations. The crisp air of Manila carried the faint scent of snow as Freya walked briskly down the palace corridor. Reports, invitations, and schedules were piled high on her desk, each demanding her immediate attention. A delegation from Asia awaited her briefing, and every word, every gesture needed to be flawless. Mistakes weren't allowed, hesitation wasn't an option. Yet, with each passing minute, her thoughts wandered. Elena. The memory of her touch, the warmth of her embrace, the intensity of last night's kiss haunted her, making every step feel heavier. She had promised herself to honor duty first, to keep her desires in check, but her heart rebelled with a quiet, unrelenting ache. A knock on the door pulled her back. Her aide entered, voice brisk but respectful. "Your Highness, the delegation is ready. Shall we begin?" Freya nodded, straightening her posture, masking the longing that flickered in her blue eyes. "Yes, let's begin." The meeting stretched on for hours, every word carefully chosen, every question answered with precision. Freya was a consummate professional, commanding the room with grace and authority. Yet beneath the calm exterior, a storm raged, each glance at her phone reminding her of the messages waiting from Elena. "I wish you were here. Counting the hours until I see you again." Her fingers lingered on the screen, a shiver running through her. Duty was relentless. Responsibility demanded her focus. But desire refused to be silenced. After the meeting, she retreated to her private study, the solitude a rare luxury. Freya sank into the leather chair, letting her phone light up with Elena's texts. She read and reread them, each one a spark in the cold, structured world she inhabited. "You're amazing. I know it's hard, but we'll make it work." A small, bittersweet smile tugged at her lips. "We will," she whispered, voice almost lost in the grand silence. She knew she could not abandon her duties, not yet. There were appearances to make, negotiations to oversee, the weight of her position pressing down like a tangible force. But each task, each obligation, only intensified the pull of Elena's absence, leaving her restless, yearning, and impatient for the next stolen moment together. Later that evening, Freya found a quiet moment in her chambers. She held the phone close, staring at Elena's face on the screen during their brief video call. "I hate this distance," she admitted softly. Elena's voice came through, calm and tender. "I know. But every hour apart makes the time together stronger." Freya nodded, fingers brushing against the glass as if she could reach through and touch her. "Promise me, when we next meet, nothing will get in the way." Elena's smile was fierce, radiant, unwavering. "I promise. Nothing." Freya exhaled, a mixture of longing and determination settling over her. Duty would always come first, but for Elena, her heart, her fire, she would carve out a path, no matter the obstacles. And with that resolve, Freya returned to her royal obligations, the ache of absence a constant reminder of what and who she was living for. Chapter 14. Reunion in Manila. The hum of the airplane cabin was a distant background to Elena's thoughts. Her hands gripped the armrests lightly as she stared out at the clouds beneath her. Monica's progress had been stable, but Elena had insisted on returning to Manila, both to ensure the baby's recovery and, she admitted silently, to see Freya again. Her phone buzzed intermittently with messages from Freya, each one a spark that made her chest tighten. Safe travels. Counting the hours until I can see you. Elena smiled faintly, typing a quick reply. I won't keep you waiting long. Touching down in Manila, the familiar tropical heat enveloped her. She spotted Marcus waiting near the arrivals gate, a reassuring anchor amidst the bustling crowd. Elena, he said, voice warm. Everything is ready at the hospital. Monica's stable and the baby's thriving. Freya's been waiting. Elena nodded, letting a small, private thrill run through her. Then let's not keep them waiting. The drive to Medical City was punctuated by silence, the tension in her chest a mixture of anticipation and nerves. When she arrived, the familiar lobby seemed almost smaller, the weight of expectation pressing against her. She walked briskly toward the private wing, Marcus guiding her. Freya was there, leaning slightly against the doorway, her posture elegant, but her eyes searching. And then Elena saw her. The sharp blue eyes that had haunted her dreams, the blonde hair glinting under the hospital lights. For a heartbeat, time froze. Elena, Freya whispered, voice caught between relief and something deeper, more dangerous. Elena. Marcus cleared his throat softly, but Elena barely heard him. She stepped forward, and Freya closed the distance in a heartbeat. Their lips met, slow at first, testing, tasting, and then with the intensity that had been building for weeks. Elena's hands slid around Freya's waist, pulling her close, and Freya responded, pressing her body against Elena's with a hunger tempered only by longing. Missed you, Freya murmured against Elena's mouth, voice trembling slightly. You have no idea, Elena breathed back, her fingers tangling in Freya's curls, her lips devouring every part of the moment they had lost. The hospital faded away. The monitors, the nurses, the steady beeping of life-saving machines, all of it became background noise to the heat and intensity between them. It was a reunion of fire and need, but also of tenderness and unspoken promises. Eventually, they pulled back, foreheads pressed together, breathing in sync. Freya's hand lingered on Elena's cheek. You're here, Freya whispered, almost a question. I'm here, Elena confirmed, voice steady now, even as her heart raced. For Monica. For the baby. And for you. Freya's eyes softened, and she smiled, a quiet, radiant promise. Then let's make every moment count. Elena nodded, and together they stepped into Monica's room. The baby's steady heartbeat filled the space, a reminder of life, responsibility, and love. And as they stood side by side, Elena and Freya knew distance, duty, and the world itself could never diminish the fire that had claimed them. Chapter 15. Choices Across Oceans. Seattle greeted Elena with its familiar gray skies and quiet drizzle, but the warmth she had felt in Manila lingered in her mind. Freya's blue eyes, her laugh, the electricity of their reunion, every memory burned bright against the dullness of routine hospital life. Back at the hospital, Elena's schedule resumed its relentless pace. Patients, surgeries, consultations, her life demanded her full attention. And yet, every free moment was filled with Freya's absence. Texts flew back and forth, video calls attempted, but time zones and duties conspired against them. I miss you, Freya's message read. I know, Elena replied, her thumb hovering over the screen. I'm counting down the days until I see you again. But counting days wasn't enough. The ache in her chest deepened with each passing hour, each routine task a reminder of what she truly wanted. The distance was not just physical, it was emotional, a slow tug at the heart that refused to relent. Late one evening, after a 12-hour day in surgery, Elena stood by the window of her apartment, the city lights mirrored in the rain-soaked streets below. She pressed her palm against the glass, imagining Freya's hand in hers, the heat, the connection. The longing had become unbearable. She made a decision. Not impulsive, not reckless, calculated, deliberate, driven by heart and mind in equal measure. Elena picked up her phone and opened a new message to Freya. Freya, I can't do this from 1,000 miles away. I need you in my life. Permanently. Will you come to Seattle? Her finger hovered over send for a moment, her pulse racing, then she pressed it. There was no turning back. Minutes felt like hours. And then, the phone buzzed with a reply. Elena, I thought you'd never ask. I'm on my way. Relief, anticipation, and a wave of warmth washed over her. The impossibility of distance, the challenge of duty, they still existed. But for the first time in weeks, Elena felt hope, certainty, and the fire of something worth fighting for. She leaned back against the window, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The city stretched below her, the lights flickering like distant stars, but her heart was no longer bound by miles or obligations. Freya was coming. And nothing, not duty, distance, or time, could change that. Chapter 16. Crossroads of the Heart. The Seattle airport was gray and damp, the drizzle tapping softly against the windows. Elena paced near the arrival's gate, her thoughts a tangle of anticipation and nerves. After weeks of texts, video calls, and stolen moments of longing, she had counted every hour, every minute until Freya's visit. When Freya finally appeared, radiant in a tailored coat and those piercing blue eyes that made Elena's heart catch, time seemed to slow. She walked toward Elena with that same poise that could command nations, but today, every movement spoke of vulnerability, of longing restrained by duty. Elena, Freya breathed, and the single word carried the weight of oceans between them. Elena. Elena's laugh was nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for Freya's. But Freya pulled her close for a fleeting, almost forbidden embrace. The warmth of her body, the scent of her perfume, it all hit Elena at once, intoxicating, devastating, impossible. They spent the evening together, savoring the stolen hours. But even in the intimacy of her apartment, the unspoken truth lingered. Freya could not stay, not truly. The obligations of royalty, the weight of her title, and the eyes of the world would not allow it. Finally, they sat across from each other, hands entwined, silence thick between them. Elena, Freya's voice was soft, almost fragile. You know why I came. Me being here, it's temporary. My duty, it can't wait. I can't leave Manila, not entirely. Elena's chest tightened. She had expected this, feared this, but hearing it out loud still cut deep. I know, but I can't, she stopped, frustration and longing warring inside her. I can't just let you go again, Freya. Freya's gaze softened, then sharpened with a sudden resolve. Then I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Elena raised an eyebrow, suspicious. I'm listening. Freya leaned forward, intensity blazing in her eyes. I've arranged for a brand new hospital, Elena. In Manila, fully funded and staffed. You'll be the head. You can build it your way, run it your way, let it with your hands, your mind, your heart. You won't answer to anyone. You'll have freedom, and the chance to save lives on your terms. Elena's breath caught. The offer was everything she had ever dreamed of professionally, but her life, her family, her routines, her friends, Seattle, her very heart, were here. And her heart's desire, the woman she loved, could not stay. Freya's fingers brushed Elena's cheek gently. I want you to consider it. You can keep your life in Seattle, or you can come with me. But Elena, whatever you choose, know that my heart will be with you, no matter what. Elena leaned back, closing her eyes. Her mind raced, her career, her city, her entire life, versus the woman who had ignited something she never knew she needed. Could she leave Seattle behind for love? Could she leave the life she had built, the world she commanded, for the fire of Freya's impossible devotion? The room fell silent, save for the distant hum of the city outside. Two hearts, two worlds, a decision that would define them both. And Elena knew there was no easy choice. Chapter 17. Torn Between Worlds. Elena sat alone in her Seattle penthouse, the city lights spilling across the floor, painting long shadows that matched the turmoil in her heart. The envelope containing Freya's official offer sat unopened on the coffee table, the words inside screaming opportunity, power, freedom, and sacrifice. Her hands clenched and unclenched as she replayed Freya's visit, every brush of fingers, every whispered word, every smile that had made her pulse race. The warmth of Freya's presence lingered, and yet, reality weighed like a boulder on her chest. Seattle was her life. Her apartment, her routines, the hospital where she had spent years building her career, they were all here. Leaving would mean uprooting everything she knew, stepping into a world of uncertainty for a love that could never truly stay. She pressed her hands to her face, inhaling deeply. The city outside was alive, oblivious to her storm. Do I chase what my heart wants, or do I honor everything I've built? The phone buzzed. A message from Freya. Thinking of you. Remember, whatever you choose. I will understand. But my heart is yours. Elena's fingers hovered over the screen. She typed, deleted, typed again. The words she wanted didn't come. How could she explain the storm of longing, ambition, fear, and desire swirling inside her? She stood and moved to the window, staring down at the streets below. Lives carried on, decisions made, opportunities grasped or missed. And here she was, paralyzed, holding the weight of her entire future in her hands. Her mind raced. If I go to Manila, I can run a hospital my way, save lives, make a mark that will last decades, and yet. Freya. I want Freya. But can I leave Seattle? My home? My world? Hours passed. The night deepened, the city quieted. Elena's mind, usually razor-sharp in the operating room, felt clouded with doubt. Her heart and mind wrestled violently, each demanding loyalty. She could almost hear Freya's voice whispering, calling her, tempting her toward a life that promised freedom and love, but at what cost? Finally, she sank into the chair, letting her head fall into her hands. Tears threatened, but she refused to let them fall. This wasn't weakness, it was the gravity of a choice that could change everything. Maybe there is no perfect answer, she thought bitterly. Only the one I have the courage to choose. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Freya. I'll give you time, but don't take too long. I need you to decide for yourself, Elena. Not for me, not for anyone else. For you. Elena closed her eyes, the weight of the world pressing down, but in the quiet, a single truth rose above all doubt. Whatever choice she made, her heart had already been claimed. And that made the decision even harder. Chapter 18. The Hospital of Dreams. The hum of the airplane engines was a low vibration beneath Elena's seat, a constant reminder that with every mile, she was leaving Seattle behind, if only temporarily, and approaching a crossroads she couldn't ignore. Her mind replayed Freya's offer like a mantra, a brand new hospital, fully hers to build and lead, a chance to shape lives on her terms, but it came tethered to a world thousands of miles away from her home, from everything she had known. When the plane touched down in Manila, the heat and humidity wrapped around her like a velvet curtain, and for a moment, the reality of her journey struck her. Freya was waiting. And somewhere beyond duty, beyond protocol, beyond the city's bustling streets, her heart might find the answer. The car ride was quiet. Marcus drove, glancing occasionally at her, sensing the storm behind her calm expression. Elena, he finally said softly, breaking the silence. The hospital is everything Freya promised. State-of-the-art, top-tier staff, you could truly make a mark here. Elena nodded, staring out the window as the skyline of Manila gave way to the outskirts where the new hospital stood. Towering, modern, sleek, yet warm in its design, a space that seemed alive, ready to be filled with purpose. When they arrived, Freya was there, waiting at the entrance, her presence radiating calm authority. Elena felt her chest tighten as she stepped out of the car. Welcome, Freya said simply, blue eyes holding Elena's. There was pride there, anticipation, and something else, hope. The tour began. Elena walked through gleaming corridors, spacious operating rooms, advanced recovery suites, and training facilities that seemed almost dreamlike. Every corner, every detail, every possibility seemed designed with her in mind. This is incredible, Elena whispered, her fingers brushing over the smooth surface of the reception desk. It's everything you promised. Freya stepped closer, her voice gentle but steady. It's yours to shape, Elena. The city, the patients, the staff, they'll follow you. You'll have freedom here that even Seattle couldn't offer. Elena's gaze swept over the hospital, imagining the surgeries, the lives saved, the legacy she could leave. And yet a shadow lingered. Seattle is my home. My life. My friends, my routines, my world. Freya's hand found hers, warm, grounding. I didn't build this for you to feel trapped, Elena. I built it because I believe in you. In us. But the choice, it must be yours. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her heart against the pull of duty. Every dream she had ever chased, every life she had ever saved, had led her to this moment. And in this gleaming hospital, she realized the impossible truth. Love and ambition were colliding, and whichever path she chose, the other would ache with absence. The sun dipped low, casting golden light across the new hospital. Elena inhaled deeply. The decision was hers to make, and she would need courage, clarity, and trust in her own heart to choose rightly. Chapter 19. Leap of the Heart. The grand ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, a sea of black tie elegance and sparkling gowns. Elena stood near the stage, poised yet quietly awed. The Philippine Medical Board was honoring her tonight, celebrating the groundbreaking success of the Truncus Arteriosus operation that had saved Monica and her unborn child. As her name was called, applause thundered through the hall. Elena walked forward, the weight of the recognition pressing pleasantly against her chest. Cameras flashed, flashes of pride and accomplishment mingling with memories of sleepless nights, the delicate incisions, the monitors beeping, and the heartbeat of a tiny life she had held in her hands. Freya was there, in the audience, regal and radiant, her eyes locked on Elena. Every time their gazes met, a shiver ran down Elena's spine, the pull of love and desire impossible to deny. When Elena took the podium, her speech was measured, heartfelt. She spoke of the courage of patients, the brilliance of her team, and the relentless pursuit of saving lives. And then, her words softened as her eyes found Freya's again. But tonight, Elena said, her voice carrying over the hush of the audience, I am reminded that some choices are not just about medicine, or career, or duty. Some choices are about the heart. The audience didn't understand the silent language passing between the two women, but Freya did. She leaned forward, breath held, as Elena took a deep breath, her voice stronger now, filled with certainty. I have been given an extraordinary opportunity, a hospital built with trust, vision, and the promise of saving countless lives. And I have realized that no matter how brilliant the offer, no matter how ambitious the path, the life I want, the life I choose, is the one I will share with the person who has captured my heart. A soft gasp came from nearby, but Elena ignored it, stepping closer to the edge of the podium, eyes never leaving Freya's. Freya Ulvin, she said, her voice low but resolute, I choose us. I choose love. I choose you. And I will take this leap, with you. The world seemed to pause. Freya's lips curved into the slowest, most breathtaking smile Elena had ever seen. She stood and crossed the space between them, the applause fading into a blur as Elena reached for her hand. I never thought anyone could make me feel whole, Freya whispered, her fingers threading through Elena's. And yet here we are. The ballroom melted away, leaving only the two of them. Hearts beating in tandem, hands clasped, eyes locked, Elena knew, finally, that she had made the impossible choice. Duty and ambition would still call, but her heart had chosen first. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Chapter 20. In Each Other's Arms. The city outside was quiet, the night wrapping the skyline in a dark velvet glow. Inside Freya's suite, the air was thick with anticipation, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the corners. Elena stepped in, shedding the armor of the gala, the silk of her dress brushing against her skin, her hair loose, her pulse still racing from the evening's triumph. Freya was waiting, regal even in the simplicity of a black silk robe. Her eyes met Elena's, and the air between them sparked with heat, unspoken promises, and a longing that had been building for months. Without a word, Freya closed the distance, her hands finding Elena's, fingers tangling with certainty. The first kiss was slow, exploratory, tasting the relief, the joy, and the love that had survived distance, duty, and fear. Elena responded instantly, pressing closer, letting her hands roam over Freya's back, tracing the lines of her body, memorizing the warmth she had been craving. Clothes fell away in a dance of urgency and reverence, leaving nothing between them but skin and desire. Every touch was electric, every brush of lips igniting fires that had been smoldering too long. Freya's hands slid through Elena's hair, pulling her closer, claiming her with gentle dominance. Elena's fingers traced the curve of Freya's jaw, the small of her back, holding her as if she could anchor them both to this moment forever. They moved together with a rhythm born of months of longing, their breaths mingling, hearts racing, the world beyond the sweet fading into irrelevance. Elena's mind, always sharp, always precise, surrendered completely to the feeling, the sensation, the intoxicating pull of Freya's body against hers. When they finally collapsed onto the bed, limbs entwined, the heat between them still burning, there was no need for words. Just whispered names, soft laughter, and the gentle brush of foreheads pressed together. Their hearts beat in sync, a perfect echo of the bond that had grown stronger than any distance or duty. Freya's voice, husky and warm, broke the silence. "You're mine now, completely." Elena's lips curved into a tired, satisfied smile. "And you're mine, always." Outside, the city lights continued their quiet vigil, but inside, there was only them, two hearts, two souls, two lives finally entwined. And in that surrender, in that perfect intimacy, Elena knew with every fiber of her being, no career, no distance, no obligation could ever dim the fire they had ignited. They drifted together into a long, unbroken night, their passion a promise of every dawn to come. Epilogue, hearts aligned. Months had passed since Elena had taken the reins of the new hospital in Manila. The state-of-the-art facility was humming with life, every operating room a testament to her precision, every patient a story of hope restored. Elena moved through the corridors with effortless authority, her presence commanding yet gentle, the staff inspired by her skill and dedication. The latest case had been grueling, a 6-year-old boy with a rare congenital heart defect. The operation had pushed her to her limits, demanding every ounce of focus, every steady hand, and every fearless decision. Hours later, in the quiet of the recovery suite, she stepped back, exhausted but triumphant. The boy's vitals were steady, his tiny heart beating strong, a victory that made her chest swell with both relief and pride. Freya was waiting, her presence a calm anchor against the storm of adrenaline and exhaustion. She had watched Elena from the observation window, witnessed the same magic that had captivated her months ago, and now stood ready to share in every victory, every heartbeat, every triumph. Elena, Freya's voice was soft, carrying through the sterile hum of the hospital. She crossed the room, eyes locked on Elena's. "You never cease to amaze me. Every life you save, every risk you take. I fall for you all over again." Elena allowed herself a small smile, wiping the sweat from her brow. "I couldn't do this without knowing you're here, Freya. You make it possible." Freya's gaze softened, and she reached into her coat pocket. From it, she withdrew a small, velvet box. Elena blinked, surprised, her heart beginning to hammer with anticipation. "Freya," Elena breathed, but Freya shook her head gently. "Not yet," she whispered. "I want you to know something before you answer. This hospital, this life, your dreams, they can continue. But what I want, what I need, is for us to continue too. For every triumph, every challenge, together." She opened the box, revealing a delicate, stunning ring that caught the light of the hospital's ceiling and reflected it like a promise. Elena's eyes widened, her breath caught. "Will you marry me, Elena Volkov?" Freya asked, her voice steady, sure, unwavering, the same certainty she had always inspired in Elena's heart. Time seemed to stretch, every second filled with memories of their journey, stolen kisses in Manila, long flights across oceans, the intensity of life and love colliding, and the quiet moments of understanding and trust. Yes, Elena whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. 1,000 times yes. Freya slipped the ring onto Elena's finger, their hands intertwining. They held each other close, and for a moment, nothing existed outside of that hospital room. Their hearts aligned, their future shared, and every sacrifice, every distance, every challenge finally giving way to a love as enduring and brilliant as Elena's hands that had saved so many lives. Outside, the city lights of Manila twinkled like stars, silent witnesses to a love that had weathered the impossible and now embraced its promise. And together, they stepped forward into a life where passion, purpose, and heart had found perfect harmony. Coda, years of love. The sunlight poured through the windows of Elena's office, warming the modern, bustling hospital that had become her life's masterpiece. The hum of activity, the soft beeping of monitors, the quiet footsteps of nurses, the occasional laughter of a child recovering, felt like a living symphony of hope and healing. Elena sat at her desk, reviewing charts, her mind still sharp, her hands steady as always. Yet today, there was an added warmth in her heart. Freya leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, glowing from pregnancy, a playful smile on her face, watching Elena with that same intensity that had captivated her from the first moment in Manila. Still working on saving the world? Freya teased, stepping closer. Elena looked up, her smile lighting the room. Always. But I've learned that some things are even more important than saving lives. Freya's smile softened, and she reached out to take Elena's hand. Their fingers entwined easily, naturally, like they had been made for each other. And what would that be? She asked, voice gentle. Elena leaned back, glancing around at the bustling halls, then returned her gaze to Freya and her growing belly. This. Us. Building a life together, even in the midst of chaos. Every triumph, every challenge, it's better shared with you. Freya's eyes glistened, a rare softness in her royal composure and the radiance of pregnancy. And soon, our family will grow. Just a few more months, and we'll have another heartbeat in our hands, another life to love. Elena's fingers brushed Freya's cheek, her thumb tracing the curve of her jaw. Her other hand on her belly. I can't wait. Every day with you is a new adventure. And now, we get to build it together, in every way. They stood there for a long moment, the world outside fading, leaving only the two of them and the quiet certainty of their love. Around them, the hospital thrived, patients healed, and life moved forward, but it was their hearts, bound together through distance, duty, and destiny, that were the true triumph. Freya leaned in, whispering against Elena's lips, always you, always us. Elena smiled, her eyes bright with love and promise. Always. And in that moment, they both knew, no matter the challenges, the distance, the weight of duty or expectation, they had chosen each other. And that choice, like the lives Elena had saved, was eternal. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.